Good evening, Mr. Bond fans, and welcome. You know, there never feels to be a time when press and fan forums aren't speculating about some element of the next Bond film. But with the US release date of November 8th, 2019, for the as yet untitled Bond 25, obviously for the next couple of years, we are gonna have nothing but rumour after rumour after rumour and speculation after speculation after speculation. So I thought I'd get the ball rolling on this channel by letting you know some of my thoughts on some of the recent developments, or not developments, depending on how much credit you give to some of these tabloid reports about the next Bond film. I should probably start this off by saying that I'm incredibly skeptical when it comes to any kind of newspaper or fan forum or anything like that reporting news about the next Bond film. I think the only true source of news for the next Bond film is directly from Eon Productions, which is where the release date, the US release date for the new Bond film came from. It's probably going to come out in the UK a little bit before the US release, as is tradition, and other countries probably around about the same time. So, all we know is that Barbara Broccoli and Michael G. Wilson are coming back to produce it, Neil Purvis and Robert Wade are coming back to write, and we have a release date, and presumably James Bond is going to be in the film, and that's kind of it at this stage. Of course, one of the big speculation points is Daniel Craig going to come back and do another one as Bond? To my mind, as of this recording, it has not yet been confirmed, but I'm pretty sure it's a safe bet that Craig is going to come back for at least one more. I would love him to come back for one more, and then I'm totally fine with them getting a new guy in after him. The thing is, this film Bond 25 is going to come out in 2019. 2022 is going to be the 60th anniversary of the Bond film series since, obviously, Dr. No's release in 1962. I can't imagine that they would want to pass up the opportunity to have a film out in the year of Bond's 60th anniversary. At the same time, if it's taken them 4 years from Spectre to get to Bond 25, either they're going to have to make a deal with Daniel Craig pretty quickly, because they certainly aren't going to let him have this cooling off period again, or as soon as Bond 25 is done, they'll need to find someone else, because these films take a long time to get going, and I think it's safe to say we're never going to have these films in 2-year bursts again, as they were for many, many years. I think 3 to 4 years between films is going to be the new normal. So really, I think Bond 25 has the opportunity to be Craig's swan song. I will be incredibly stunned if he doesn't come back. I'm pretty sure it's a safe bet, and who knows, by the time the next Bond film comes around, there'll probably be a whole other new waft of people for the press to speculate on, because I know that Tom Hiddleston was the one who was being like held up as like, oh, he's the next one, he's the next one. There were reports of him like apparently doing a screen test, and Barbara Broccoli saying that he was too smug to be Bond, and that his relationship with Taylor Swift had affected his chances or whatever. I don't know how much of that I believe at all. I have no basis for this information. So, as far as I'm concerned, it was always going to be Craig coming back, and I still think it will be. Especially with how Spectre ended, as much as I'm not a huge fan of some of the plot developments of that film, they can't escape the fact that they've left Blofeld alive, and he has this personal connection with Bond, and they'll need to address that. And if it was any other Bond actor other than Craig, I can't imagine it would work if Christoph Waltz came back. But as far as the MI6 regulars go, I would like them to stay exactly the same. I think Ralph Fiennes is great as M. I'd love to see more of him. Ben Whishaw as Q, fantastic. Naomi Harris, Moneypenny, amazing. Rory Kinnear as Tanner is great. My only fear is that now that we have all these great actors, and I think Spectre kind of proved in a way that it's very difficult to give these characters a great deal of exposure and screen time without it feeling a little bit, like, oh, it's the Super Friends come to help Bond, because this is kind of unprecedented in the Bond film series. It's obviously like M and Q would give him his gadgets, they'd have a scene, and then Bond would go off and meet all these new characters in an adventure. Now they seem to be making a very conscious effort to make the MI6 team a real team, and it feels a little bit Mission Impossible to me at times. As for other characters from Spectre, Madeleine Swan, do not care if she comes back or not. It depends what kind of story plot they're going for. Obviously there's been a lot of rumours that either this upcoming film, or even the next one if Craig stays to do 2 more, is going to be a remake of On Her Majesty's Secret Service. I can't imagine that would be true in the true sense of a remake. I don't think they're going to release a film starring Daniel Craig called On Her Majesty's Secret Service. And the idea of remakes within the Bond film series at all is just kind of invalid, I think. Unless you're going to remake a film with, you know, with the exact same villain, the exact same plot, because, I mean, the Bond film series is not exactly a series known for variety of plots. I mean, it all comes down to more or less the same thing at the end of the day, and that's fine. But as far as a remake of On Her Majesty's Secret Service goes, exactly, not a big fan. Especially because presumably they would be doing that with Madeline Swan, because I can't imagine they're going to bring in another character with the name of Tracy, and have Daniel Craig's Bond fall in love with her, because how many times can this man fall in love, you know, with all these different women? It's like we're supposed to believe it with Vesper, we're supposed to believe it with Swan. Third time you can't keep doing this. Not that I'm saying that it was especially successful with Swan, which is why I would not want her in Bond 25. I would be completely happy them leaving her. Because if they do go down the route where she's assassinated at the start of it and then Bond is out for revenge against Blofeld, I'm just not terribly interested in seeing that. I would rather give Blofeld something new and Bond something new to motivate him. As for Christoph Waltz, while I was not a big fan of his Blofeld at all in Spectre, I love that actor, and he seems to be aware. He said in interviews that he doesn't think he quite got the performance right, and I like that level of self-awareness, and I think if you brought him back, he could probably deliver a better Blofeld. As for Spectre's other villain, Mr. Hinks, kind of the same with Swan. I'm like, I just don't really get it. I think Dave Bautista did a good job as Hinks. I think he's fine, but he was not iconic in any way, shape or form to my mind, and I think the film was writing him as if we were supposed to feel like him as we would for Oddjob and Jaws and Mayday, these classic Bond villain hench people. And I have nothing of that with Hinks. I thought he was fine for the one film, but I'm kind of uninterested in them bringing him back. And even considering how the series has treated Quantum of Solace, which did not make, you know, it didn't flop at the box office and it had mixed reviews, but if they're going to treat a film like Quantum of Solace and just sort of like put it to the back of the, you know, they barely mention it in Spectre, it's like it's all about Casino Royale and Skyfall and how they tie in, and Quantum of Solace, oh no, we're going to sweep that under the rug, not going to bother with that. If they're going to do that with Quantum of Solace, I can't imagine what they're going to do with Spectre, which had a similar sort of middling review and it wasn't critically praised or adored as Casino Royale and Skyfall. I don't know how much they're going to want to acknowledge Spectre and the characters that came about directly from that film at all. I think Blofeld's going to come back. Swan and Hinks, I don't think so. Anyway, that's it for the cast. As far as the crew go, Neil Purvis and Robert Wade are back for writing duties. Obviously, they've had a hand in the Bond film since The World Is Not Enough, and I'm totally fine with that. I mean, admittedly, they have a hit and miss sort of ratio, but then you never know, like, the other kind of script doctors that come in and these things, and they share the credit, you know, with, like, some John Logan. Even Richard Maybaum, like back in the day, would, I mean, you know, the quality of writing throughout the series is up and down, despite it being the same people, so I don't know how much I'm gonna, like, rest on Neil Purvis and Robert Wade as an indicator of whether or not the film is gonna be good. There were reports that Adele is apparently being courted to come back and do another theme song. This is something where I would be totally okay with that. Skyfall is my very favourite Bond theme of all time. I'm totally happy with her coming back to try and recreate that success. At the same time, bringing back the same people to try and recreate the same success as Spectre kind of proved a little bit, not necessarily always going to work, and sometimes it devalues the thing that came before it. So if we're going to leave Skyfall alone as its own precious little thing, that's totally fine. There are plenty more amazing musicians and artists out there. I did read I can't imagine this ever happening in a million years, but that Beyonce would be courted to do a song, and I would be totally okay with that as well. She's an amazing singer. Somehow I don't feel like she fits in with that. I think she's so American, and I think the Bond series at this point is mainly going to look for, you know, homegrown British singers like Adele and Sam Smith to give it that air of Britishness and prestige, I suppose. But saying that, my god, I would love Lady Gaga to do a Bond theme. Last thing I want to speculate about in this particular video, and especially to get your guys' impression on it, the idea of a Bond cinematic universe, because this has been coming up in articles that I've seen quite a lot lately, and I am just totally not a fan of the idea. I like Bond movies as events. If I want to get more Bond adventures, I will go to books, I will go to video games, you know, there are other ways, comics, there are other ways to experience this character in different scenarios, and I don't feel that having like 2 or 3 films out a year, or even 1 every year, it is going to make it any more special. I also think that for a cinematic universe to work, it has to take its own continuity incredibly seriously, and obviously the continuity was sort of, you know, scrapped at the start of Casino Royale, and this is a fresh timeline that brings since the start of the Daniel Craig era. But I don't want the Bond films to do that. I don't want them to, because the Bond films did perfectly well for 40 years, not acknowledging the fact that this man who was like, you know, in his mid-30s in 1962 is only in his, you know, late 40s in 2002. And I don't think that the Bond films need that level of intricate continuity, because then it comes down to things like, even between like Casino Royale and Skyfall, the idea that the Aston Martin got kitted out by Q Branch or whatever with the same gadget and Goldfinger, it's like, it's timeline bending, and for a cinematic universe to work, in my opinion, you need to have a great deal of intricacy and continuity, and, you know, the whole thing has to work. For Bond to become that, it's not something I'm terribly interested in, to be perfectly honest. I think this franchise has succeeded because the majority of people really don't care. It's like, if you are going to get hung up, I mean, see my Codename Theory video if you want to know my feelings on people that get hung up on that kind of continuity, because this is just not a film series that warrants that kind of, you know, nitpicking. It's, if you do, you're doomed to fail. It's like, yeah, it doesn't make sense on a linear timeline. There you go, what more do you want? Sorry. There's really nothing more to it than that. If it annoys you, sorry, that's the way it is. I can't do anything about it. So over 2 years, we're going to have a lot to talk about, a lot to speculate on, and please do check back here for update videos and whatnot. I'm really looking forward to tracking this film's production as the gears get going, as I said at the start of the video. And please let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Until next time, Bond fans, so long for now.